Hey guys, Stan Efferding here, founder of The Vertical Diet. We provide a simple, sensible, and sustainable solution to help you reach your health and fitness goals. First, get started with our easy-to-follow Vertical Diet ebook, which includes a quick start guide and sample menus to customize a diet plan that fits your goals. Second, use the My Vertical Tracker app to help you monitor and maintain your progress. And third, for our busy clients who are always on the go, let us do the cooking for you. Our Vertical Diet Meal Prep Company offers free shipping for your favorite meals delivered to your door in the US and Canada. So head on over to stanefferding.com and get started today.
Boom, there we have it. Welcome back, episode 2 of the Vertical Diet Podcast. We're kind of rookies at this. I thought this was going to be easy. I figured if Mark Bell could do it, anybody could do it. But I learned last week, my wife told me after our interview with Greg that I talk too much. So my goal today is not to talk so much. So I'm joined here by my co-author, partner in crime, Damon McCune, registered dietitian, LD, PhD, XYZ, LMNOP. And he's going to help define the terms that our other PhD guest is going to be talking about today when I get lost. And so let's start. Damon, why don't you do the introductions?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today, Brett. So we've got a guest today that really needs no introduction in the fitness industry. I think pretty much everybody knows who he is. He's the Glute Guy. So Dr. Brett Contreras. Brett, why don't you go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about how you got started, your background, and kind of where you're at with things.
Well, first off, thanks for having me on the show. So my kind of unique. I remember, I was personal training when I was a teenager, and then I think I got certified at age 20 through ACE.
Okay.
And I ended up getting a CSCS when I was like 24 or something like that. But I always saw personal training. I just thought you couldn't make much money in it, which is kind of hilarious the way things have gone now. But yeah, I just saw it as like a side job. I never thought it could be a full-time gig. So I got my bachelor's degree in education, my master's degree in curriculum instruction, and then went back and got a PhD down the road in sports science. But I've always been a personal trainer. I've owned gyms along the way, several gyms. And, it was kind of like this evolution of just being so interested in strength and conditioning since I was 15 years old, reading up on it. At first it was because I wanted to eventually be able to attract a female so I could have sex.
Yeah.
And then not be bullied by the seniors when I was a freshman, and stand up to people. And I was so scrawny and so skinny, and I saw weights as this weight training as a way to transform my life and improve my confidence, and it did that. But I was so interested in the science behind it from day one, and so then it just became some side gig. But I was so interested, even as a teacher, I was always, during my prep period, during my lunch period, I was reading as much as I could. And at first, because those of us older people were around before the internet, and I had to read magazines.
Yeah.
You only had there were like 10 options. You had like the bodybuilding mags, there was a powerlifting mag, and that's how you got your information from. And then the internet happened, and I was like a candy shop. I couldn't, there's all these websites and forums where you can talk shop with other lifters. Like, that was amazing. So then, eventually realizing I think I could do this full time, and, gym, maybe I could. And then everything changes so much. I often wonder what it's going to be like 10 years from now, because even 10 years ago, there was no Instagram, and it went from, most of us trainers made all our money on actually training people in gyms, to realizing if you're good at social media, you can make even more money online through your online stuff, and either through being an online coach or having digital products or subscription services or nowadays it's the apps and things like that I haven't gotten into, but it's been a fun ride, and I've enjoyed it, and I like that you introduced me as someone who needs no introduction. That's cool to hear that, although I always think it's important. We've seen a lot of experts in our industry get cocky and I'm always like, you're a personal trainer. Why do you think you're so cool, you know, like there's a lot of cocky people in strength and conditioning, and you meet them and you're just disappointed. So I never ever want to be. I try to always answer DMs. I like having an actual gym so people can come and meet me, and I try to be humble so that, yeah, I never want to get too big for my britches, because that's when a person goes downhill.
You know, and I got to say, as someone who's met you several times, you know, you are that humble person, and you're very approachable, and anybody that has a question, you know, you take the time to answer it the best you can. And I think it's interesting, at the beginning of this, you talked about, you know, wanting to attract women, and now for pretty much anybody in the world, the women that they're trying to attract, you've developed their glutes in some way, shape, or form. They're probably following the program that you came up with to develop their glutes. So thank you. We appreciate that.
I say, you know, the women should get my services and products for free, and the men should just be paying me like, you know, like some, you know, the men should take up a collection and then have to, you know, worry about it again. So
That's great. You know, you said something interesting. You didn't have the internet when you were coming up, and I was in the same position. And now that I travel around and provide information for people, one of the biggest questions they ask me is where do you get information? And that's why I had Greg Knuckles on last week with Mass Research Review. And that's really why I wanted to have you on, because you and Greg, on a short list of others, are people that I refer my clients to that ask me those questions, because you pour so much time and energy, and you don't just have the education. You've applied it. You have the application, and you're not popular just to be popular. You're popular because you got results for many, many years. You've worked very hard at it. So I refer people to you, and specifically just even your Instagram. You have a bunch of great products out there. Tell us about your latest book, your glute book. I refer all my female clients, I just send them your information. Go do his glute workout. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. Tell us what that is.
Well, so I want to address that in two parts, because you brought up a great, where do you get your information from? I think that's a separate question. And then the glute, so I'll talk about the Glute Lab book first. And by the way, Stan, I think it's so cool to hear you say that. And that's really the mark of a secure trainer that really just cares about their clients' results, because there are a lot of insecure trainers out there. And I can relate, like, let's say I just started out, you'd feel bad being like, oh, just go buy this guy's book. You're going to learn everything about glutes. And then you'd be like, well, then why would they need me?
Exactly.
But when you're doing well, and when you're like, you don't worry about there, you're like, you're so busy. You're like, go read this guy's book. I don't have time to, he'll do a better job teaching about glutes than I will. And you come to me for, you know, more for the diet or for the prep or for something else. But anyway, props to you for doing that, because I try and be like that too. And it's the mark of a secure trainer who has their clients' results, you know, their clients' best interest in mind. Now this book, it's funny because I've been told by people, you know, God, why would you write a real book when you can make so much more money with ebooks? But my goal was never to, you know, I always think of it as like, people think they only care about money, but they don't. They actually care about, you know, that once you get the money, it's like, okay, this isn't entirely fulfilling. You want, the followers are cool, the money is cool, but you also want credibility, you want colleagues, you want to be taken seriously, and you want your methods to be popular, you know, all over the world. And that's this latter goal of, I want to be going to every gym around the world and see them doing, you know, they're doing hip thrusts, they're doing my methods, they're using bands, they're doing these things. And so I spent 2 years on this book. It's like 606 pages, and it has so much information in it. And the publishing company had to we had to delete like 36 pages. It was it was gut wrenching, because I'm so OCD about the content. But yep. I'm really proud of it. I'm really glad to hear you liked it, and I'm getting good feedback from it. So, and the book is much more than just a glute book. I dive into the science of hypertrophy, stuff on training around pain and injury, stuff about, you know, this latest fad with everyone being so dysfunctional that I'm not happy about, you know, some diet and nutrition stuff, and just tons of exercise options, because I do think that every trainer and every lifter should have a huge arsenal, because you never know when this exercise is going to come in handy. So now to address the other part of your question about where do you get your information, I think that's important because I've seen my career. First, I read muscle mags. Then my favorite website was T Nation, Testosterone Nation, from like 1998 until like probably like 5 years ago. That was my main source of that's where the best coaches they were authors for that site, and I got so many good ideas from them. Because like I could just list all the popular writers. Then they were all the most popular strength coaches, and then now I don't read T Nation, and blogs aren't cool anymore. It used to be you read everyone's blogs, you followed all the strength coaches' blogs, and then kind of people drifted away from blogging. People they want infographics, and they want just like 3 words in a picture now. So so people stopped blogging. So now I get my information mainly from like I follow some people on Instagram that come out with good ideas. So the practical stuff, I follow some coaches and lifters who I think are creative and innovative, and who might just, I try to follow a lot of the researchers on Twitter. But you mentioned Greg Knuckles. He has his Mass research review. I subscribe to that. There's 4 research reviews that I have: Mass, Chris Beardsley's Strength and Conditioning research review, Alan Aragon's AARR, his research review, and then James Krieger's Weightology research review. And I'm lucky to be friends with all these people too. And it's just who has time to go through? Because I used to have a research review with Chris Beardsley, and I'd go through 100 journals a month. It was brutal. And these guys
That's time consuming.
Oh God. But these guys do it for you and summarize it and work very hard. So I have all 4 of those research reviews. And then I also try to read or at least browse through 1 journal article every day. I don't always do it, but it just, if you stop caring about science, in my opinion, you stop evolving. Once you think you know it all, because I can't tell you how much, just in the last decade, how much I thought I knew that I was wrong about. So
Agreed.
That's where I get on the science. That's how I learn my info.
Yeah, that's great. I subscribe to all 4 of those as well. Hey, you mentioned something that is really important to me because I saw you present this topic in a seminar. It's been about 2 years ago now. And you talked about the entire people identifying themselves, or clinicians identifying individuals with some sort of, what would we call it, injury, not necessarily call it an injury, but as broken, or just giving themselves kind of a nocebo effect. And I'd like to hear you elaborate on that because I see it chronically throughout the industry.
So I'm really happy. I feel like my message is spreading. I'm seeing physical therapists jump on the train, and I want to get more people involved. I started talking about this a couple years ago. In fact, Stan, that was the first time I spoke about it, was at the fitness summit that you were at. And since then, I've spoken about it on several podcasts. But basically, and I could ramble about this for an entire hour, so I'm going to try and be succinct. But I think it is my opinion. Now, I know so many, I think that physical therapists, chiropractors, manual therapists, all the people involved in the rehab profession, and strength coaches and personal trainers are there too. It's so funny to me because we're not supposed to, and you hear these coaches that are like, we don't deal with pain. It's not our job to deal with pain. We have to refer out for that. And it's like, come on, Stan, how many lifters do you know who are never in pain? Like, that's part of our job, whether we know it or not. You're going to have muscular pain. You're going to have sore joints. If you're a serious lifter, you don't go year round without injuring yourself. And you're not going to, it's just silly to me, but our lines are blurred. Our lines are always blurred between the strength coach and the physical therapist. And so we have to work together. But here's the problem. I know these guys are well-intentioned, but they don't know strength and conditioning, most of them. The vast majority of them. So you go to a manual therapist, all right? And there's that saying, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. You go to a manual therapist, seriously, every single time they're going to say, oh my God, this muscle is tight. Oh, this muscle's all knotted up. you're so tense. You need massage therapy, regular. You need regular massage therapy to loosen up these muscles, and I need to be stretching you and this stuff and massaging you, and you'll loosen up, and that's the source of your dysfunction. Okay, like 100% of the time you'll get told that. Okay, and I know that's going to anger some people, but people have to understand. I work with more people than pretty much anyone. Like I have real life clients. I have this huge Booty by Brett membership. I have DMs constantly. Like I see it better than anyone. And everyone who comes to me to train with me, they all say to me, just want to let you know, and I know all the coaches and trainers out there that are listening to this will be nodding their heads, that you get a new client and they go, I just want to let you know, I have a glute imbalance, or my glutes don't activate. I have a weak core. I have excessive anterior pelvic tilt. I have
one leg's longer than the other.
leg discrepancy. My SI joint is this. My whatever. This muscle doesn't fire. And I'm always like, okay, and I'll address that in a second. But let me elaborate on. Okay, you go to the manual therapist. They're going to say it's a tight muscle. You go to a chiropractor, and they're going to say, well, this is stemming from your spine. I need to adjust you and alleviate your problems. And you go to the physical therapist, and they're going to say, oh, you have this type of dysfunction. And I hear it all. Your scapula is glued down. It's glued down, like it doesn't move at all. Come on. And then they'll say your SI joint is out. It's out, like it's a freaking wedge. It's wedged in there. And they'll say all these things. And the chiropractor will take an X-ray, and it makes, I swear they tell you to stand a certain way that makes you look all jacked up. And so then the physical therapist says, you need to be put on a corrective exercise program. Now, here's the deal. A lot of times it works, but the thing is, it didn't work through how they thought. There's a quote by Voltaire. God, I never get this right. So here we go. Okay, the art of medicine consists in amusing the patient while nature cures the disease. All right? The art of medicine consists in amusing the patient while nature cures the disease. So if you happen to, like think about it, Stan, Damon, we're lifters. How many times does your shoulder feel weird, and then you do something different, you lay off of it, and then the next week it's fine? And this is what happens a lot. And so if you happen to gone to a rehab professional and they say, yeah, you've got this dysfunction, I'm going to put you on these corrective exercises, and I'm going to give you, and I'm not knocking on these exercises because I'm a biomechanist at heart. I love exercise. I love all exercise. But they'll say, your shoulder hurts. Okay, you need to be put on this corrective exercise plan, and I'm going to give you, push-up pluses, face pulls, prone trap raises, YTWLs. I'm going to give you cable L flies or something, and guess what? 3 weeks later, you feel better. But it wasn't necessary. It probably wasn't because of those exercises, because they had you stop doing bench press and military press, and that's what was causing the issues. So that's my whole point. I've seen so few, and I know some of these guys. Some of my friends in the industry are the elite level rehab professionals who do understand strength and conditioning. But what I'll always say to these people who come to me, and I'm like, so who told you this? And they're like, a physical therapist. And I'll go, okay, did they ask you to see your form? Like your low back hurts, and they told you have a weak core and your glutes don't activate. Did they ask to see your deadlift form? Did they look at your squat form to see if you butt wink a lot? Did they see if you round back your deadlifts? Did they look at maybe you're hyperextending your hip thrusts, or reverse hypers or back extensions, you're excessively hyperextending? No, they didn't look at any of that. Did they look at your program? Because, if you're 40 or 43 years old like me and you're trying to deadlift 3 times a week, yes, you're going to have low back pain. Maybe you
probably.
You shouldn't deadlift heavy 3 times a week. Let's try deadlifting once a week and doing this instead. They don't understand the program design stuff because they're not embedded in the world of strength and conditioning. They're not dealing with it every single day like we do. They don't understand these things. They couldn't possibly, and they don't know what they don't know. And so I would like us to work together better because it sounds like I'm just bagging on these people, but they need to understand that the words matter. Words matter. So I'm going to hopefully wrap this up in a way that pleases them. I'm not against what they do because they help people and they care about people. And that's important, by the way. We need to care about these people and show them, that's important for healing too, is just having that caring touch. But it's the words that they say matter. And so if you tell someone, you have a herniated disc and you don't tell them that discs can heal. I have people who tell me I have a herniated disc, and I'm like, when did you get diagnosed with that? And they're like 6 years ago. And I'm like, discs can heal, right? Type into PubMed spontaneous regression of disc herniation, and you'll find all these case studies where it shows that they image these people, and then months later they image them again, and there's no evidence of that herniation. Like they need to know that, or else they think they have it for life. If they think their sacrum is out, like it came out, like the bones are out of the body, that's bad. Or these slip disc. The term slip disc makes you think that a disc is like slipped out. And all these dysfunctions, like you go through life thinking, and the reason why this is so important to me is when I was 15 years old, I think I was 16 actually, I got in a really bad car accident and I got imaging. I could hardly walk. I was in such bad shape. And I got some imaging done on MRI on my low back. And this doctor came to me, he goes, you have the spine of a 90-year-old. He's like, I've never seen such bad disc degeneration and you're only 15 or 16. And he's like, you should never lift weights or play sports again. Tell a 16-year-old kid that. I was devastated. I thought my life is over. I thought by the time I was 25, I'd be in crutches. And now look at me. My back is strong as hell. That doctor was wrong. I'm sure I had bad degenerative discs. I probably have bad discs now, but there's more to it than that. Your disc degeneration is a way of life. I've probably read 1,000 studies on disc physiology and biomechanics, and I know enough to know that a lot of it has to deal with your confidence in your mind. I mean, look at Lamar Gant. Google Lamar Gant. He had severe scoliosis, and he was arguably the best deadlifter in the history of mankind. And it gave him an advantage. So everything's a case-by-case basis. And that's what makes our job so valuable as practitioners, is we have to get people to say, okay, because they'll be told, you can't lift, you can't train. And it's like, yes, you can train. You can always train. Bed rest is rarely a good solution. You got to get out there and try and see what you can do. And I have so many people that come to me and they're like, I have this dysfunction. And I always go, my glutes don't activate. And I go, oh, they don't? Let me see. Get down in a glute bridge. Okay, come to the top. And I poke and prod them. I'm like, no, they activate fine. Feel this. Feel that. That's good glute activation. You actually have good glute activation. And they're mad at me because they want that excuse. They want that. And they're like seething. They're like, whatever. And then I have a weak core. And I'm like, you do? Okay, let me see you do a side plank. Wow, you just held that for 40 seconds. I don't think I can do a 40-second side plank. You actually have a strong core. Okay? It's likely something else. Or I have anterior pelvic tilt. I'm like, yeah, Usain Bolt had anterior pelvic tilt. He had a leg length discrepancy. He was the fastest dude on the planet ever. So it's okay. It's okay. You're going to be fine. Trust me. I'm going to find exercises that work well for you, and you're going to be able to do far more than you ever expected. And I never tell someone they're dysfunctional. In all my years as a real personal trainer working with people in real life, I have never told someone they're dysfunctional. I don't tell them they have some syndrome. All I do is compliment. All I do is compliment people because I want them loving the experience. I don't want them to doubt themselves. So I feel like the current model is this fear and dependency model. And I want to switch things to an empowerment model, a strength coach. Think of a strength coach is like a general. We strengthen people. We don't just strengthen people's muscles. We strengthen people's minds, bodies, and spirits. We give them confidence. What we do every day is we take these people and we build them up, and we transform them into more confident individuals and more capable individuals. And that's what we need to focus on, not telling them what they can't do and where they're going, like what syndrome, what made up syndromes that they have. You think of yourself as a general. You're sending think of the movie 300 and you're Leonidas and you're about to send your people out. You're not going to be like, all right, guys, all right, let's be real. Stan and Damon, you're on the front line, but Stan, that back pain is going to get the best of you. Just try and take out a couple people before you get stabbed. And Damon, your your leg length discrepancy, you're going to probably fall over. Just try to make sure you at least, block the way.
Yeah, trip somebody on my way down.
Right. You would never do that. You'd be building them up. You'd be like, "Come on, guys, we can do this." You'd be trying to encourage them. And so I always find a positive, and I always say this. I call it the movement pattern continuum. You start people off with simple movement patterns, and then you're like, "Wow, that's okay. Sorry, that's way too easy for you." And then you move them up a notch. Oh, that's also too easy for you. You're like, say they're doing a squat. You have them do a body weight box squat to parallel. They can do it fine. Ooh, that's too easy. I'm going to move the box down. Wow, that's really easy for you too. I'm going to put a dumbbell in your hands and see you do a goblet box squat. Wow. I think I'm going to have you, I normally don't do this, but on day one, I'm actually going to have you try a front squat. I normally don't do this, but you're more advanced than I thought. And then they're like, the whole time they're going, wow, I'm advanced, But if you start them off like with a bar on their back and say you throw on 95 pounds and it's the person's first time squatting and they go down halfway and come up and you're like, go deeper, and they're folding like an accordion and their knees are caving and you're like, you're just not doing it right. You must have dysfunction. Then that's a crummy trainer. You need to know what you're doing. You need to start them off easy, compliment them, build them up, and instill confidence. And then you want them going home to their spouses, to their family, to their friends, to their coworkers going, hey, guess who's built to squat? You're looking at her, guess who's going to be a deadlift champ? Yours truly. My trainer said I'm going to be amazing at the deadlift. And you can always find exercise that people are great at.
I agree, man. I'm glad I touched that nerve. You covered everything and more than what I had hoped for. That's such an important message. Pain is going to be a normal part of life. Show me someone who's never been injured, and I'll show you someone who's never won anything. And even the smart, hardworking people that are using an ounce of prevention to prevent the pound of cure, such as the folks from Barbell Medicine, Austin Baraki and Jordan Fagenbaum over there, they're sending the same message with respect to movement therapy and Dr. Larimar Mosley's work. The Explain Pain work that's out there. It talks about all the stuff that you've been promoting now for a couple of years, that people are not victims of some circumstance, that they are more capable than they perceive, and they just need to continue moving. Like you said, inactivity is really the biggest problem. I think Greg Nuckols referred to it as kinesiophobic, when somebody thinks something's hurt, when actually just the opposite is what they need to do. So you also touched on something I thought was huge. 90% of people who have pain, the pain goes away spontaneously within 4 to 6 weeks. So whatever method that they're using during those 4 to 6 weeks, whatever intervention they've submitted themselves to, whether it be a copper bracelet or chiropractic or physical therapy or hanging upside down, the spontaneous recovery will be attributed to that intervention. And so people get pretty dogmatic about, the intervention they were using, then they share it with everybody else. This person fixed me. And again, it's not an indictment of physical therapists and chiropractors. One of my, most highly respected people in the industry, I think, on this is Dr. Bo Hightower, who's just brilliant. He's a Mensa member. He's got 3 PhDs. He himself says that manipulation works on about 20% of the people. So, I think that the good therapists out there understand exactly what you said. They're facilitators of movement. It's not that they're going to come in there and fix something by turning a bolt or a screw. What they need to do is empower you to begin to move so that you can then move. I've said that things that are done to you or for you are never as effective as things you do for yourself. And if you go to therapy and they provide you a greater range of motion or more movement, you now need to move early and often in order to fully repair. So I think you summed that up in total. Damon, did you want to close with the question? Because we had our 30 minutes with Greg or with Brett, and I know he's busy.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, since you were talking about earlier, people want that infographic with just the pictures and like 3 words. Maybe what would you, put down into your top 3 training philosophies or your approach? Like, what would be if somebody came to you brand new and they were like, what do I need to do? What would be your top 3?
So I think one of the tips, people read, and we're all guilty of it. I geek out on writing myself programs, and then I never can stick to them because I always write too much. Uh, I write myself a plan. I'm like, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to crush it, and it's always too much. Um, and you want to do like 6 exercises every day. And I mean, after you've been lifting a long time, yes, I could do 6 exercises a day if I didn't crush every one of them. But if you're trying to get stronger and you're caring about progressive overload, so you look at a lot of the way a lot of people work out, and it's kind of like a mix between strength training and circuit training. And that's not going to get you your strongest or your best physique. They mistake the metabolic, with like, I want to have a good workout. They want their heart rate racing. They want to be sweating. They want to be exhausted. But if you look at the mechanisms of hypertrophy, the number one mechanism by far is mechanical tension. Are you putting more tension on the muscles over time? Most people aren't. Look, they're the same strength week after week, month after month, year after year. So their program isn't working for them because they're not getting stronger. So they're like, okay, I need to work out harder. And their way of working out harder is do more volume, do more sets, add this exercise in. But they're not getting stronger. What they need is a better program where they have more rest in between sets, where they focus, where they have a goal, they have strength goals, they're trying to achieve progressive overload in some sort. Then people start reading up on, looking at other people's routines and trying to mimic the routine of their idol who might be genetically gifted. And, all these things that help us, that we talk about, the acute program design variables like frequency, volume, rest periods, tempo, effort, load. There's probably like 10 or 12 of them that are worth discussing. Those, you can get too carried away with those things, and what matters is, every 6 months, every year you should go up a little bit, especially early on in your career. You should be getting stronger and stronger. Now, I don't just mean 1 rep max strong. I mean stronger at all of the rep ranges, at all the best movements. Like, you need to be finding a good squat for you, a good deadlift for you, a good hip thrust for you, a couple of presses that feel good for you, upper body presses, a couple of upper body pulls that feel good for you. And these will change over time. I know with me, my favorite exercise in my 20s were weighted chin-ups and weighted dips. Well, once you get to 250 pounds, weighted chin-ups don't feel as good for you. You start doing more pull downs. You wouldn't know that until you're heavy. And then weighted dips, after 20 years of doing dips, they start hurting my shoulders a little bit. I don't do them as much anymore. So they might change, but there's always a couple of movements that you can be doing. You got to tinker around with them. And so never forget the fact that increased tension on the muscles is what builds a better physique. And the next tip is people focus on, most people are we tend to look at the people who we attract, which, like Stan, you've got a big powerlifting and bodybuilding following for obvious reasons. And, I tend to attract more advanced lifters who want great glute development. And then you look at like most of the world is overweight, and they're so confused because they're like, well, I want to lose size, so I should be training metabolically and just trying to do HIIT training, losing as much weight as possible. But if you think logically about it, let's say, that starving themselves, they starve themselves and they do too much, high intensity interval training or cardio. And if they lose 20 pounds, the goal is to lose 20 pounds of fat and keep your muscle, keep your shape. That's really, really hard to do. Most people will probably if they lose 20 pounds, they'll lose 10 pounds of fat and 10 pounds of muscle. So how can you keep the muscle? Well, that's where proper resistance training, doing it gradually and consuming enough protein, those things all matter. And that takes patience, and most people don't have the patience. and so they don't achieve their best physiques. And I'm always like, don't second guess things, don't over analyze things. The bodybuilders are the leanest, they have the best physiques. You want to get lean, you got to learn from the bodybuilders. And I think people get carried away. And then the third tip would just be like, you're going to see better results if you're pain and injury free. And so there might be exercise you have to avoid, no matter how hard it is to admit. Like maybe you should do conventional deadlifts. You know, maybe you should do high handle trap bar deadlifts instead. Maybe you shouldn't do back squats. Maybe you should do maybe you'd see better results if you did safety bar squats, or even like you just did single leg work. You know, people scoff at that, but what if you were, every time you go to squat, your knees feel like they're gonna, pop. And every time you deadlift, you get back pain afterwards. At least for the time being, like for a few months, you should try to focus on other movements, or just really improving upon your form and going light and trying to, use the mind-muscle connection and not get carried away with trying to set PRs, because pain inhibits muscle activation. And if you're always pushing through pain and not feeling good, you're not going to activate as much motor units as possible. You're not going to put as much tension on the muscle as possible. So that's why you got to keep tinkering. You got to keep figuring out the best exercise and the best volume and frequency for you that helps you kind of lift and be in a good place where you're not so beat up all the time. And that might involve taking a hard look and going, maybe I shouldn't be doing bench press multiple times a week. Maybe I should just do board press once a week and do push-ups another day or something like that. It's hard to admit. It's hard to do when you love heavy lifting, when you love powerlifting, when you love squats, bench, deadlifts, military press, weighted dips, weighted chins. But it's important to take a hard look at your approach and think about that.
No, that's excellent. Dorian Yates built his entire career around mechanical tension and progression, and he still talks about it. And I know it sounds old school, but like Alan Aragon says in his seminars, the bros were right. And I think that the pendulum swung too far there for a brief period of time, and you're bringing it back to understand that these are the fundamentals that still work and still apply today. Also, something very important you said about being pain-free. That's kind of one of the things that I had to transition to after I stopped competing, is finding exercises that didn't hurt rather than the ones I thought I needed or had to do. And that's allowed me now, at 52, not to have any pain, no knee pain, no hip pain, and I feel fantastic, better than I have in 10 years. What I think is really fascinating about everything that you said today, and I want our audience to know, is that, and I heard you say this at your seminar in DC at the NSCA conference when you presented. The one thing that stuck in my mind was when you said it takes you an hour or more to make a post. And I came running home to tell my wife, because she laughs at me all the time because I don't make very many posts because I'm so caught up in the quality of that post. And I was like, look, Brett has the same problem I have. He's OCD, he wants his information to be perfect. So I'll pass that back to you. Tell the audience why it is it takes you an hour to make a post.
So that's what I often, with my trainers, my clients, they see that I have a large following. They want my advice and everything. And I'll always say, okay, so let's look at the last post you made. And I'm like, okay, I'll open up I'll open up to their Instagram and I'll go, okay, this is a decent post. How long did it take you? And like, what do you mean? I'm like, so you took this picture, you took this video clip, okay, and then you didn't edit it, you just posted it. You just posted it and you added a caption. How long did it take you to write that caption? Probably like 10, 15 minutes. I'm like, cool. Well, the difference between, and I hope this doesn't sound conceited, to me, it's an obvious first thing to look at. The difference between the post I made and the post you made is I took this, I used a better camera and I had my assistant edit it. I pay an assistant to edit that video and add music to it. And then, I added, if it's like an educational video, I added subtitles to it. I had a ring light in the background to make me look a little bit better. My caption, I actually wrote it and I went over too many characters and I had to whittle it down 2 different times to get it under the character limit. And it took me 2 solid hours to get the characters just right. And then I was doubtful of this thing that I was saying, and I went and double checked on it. And I ended up having to research for a couple of hours till I was certain about it. And that post ended up taking me, 3 hours of work of myself and my assistant 1 or 2 hours. Like, we put 5 hours into that one post, and you took 20 minutes. And this is my job. This is my career. I have to put in, I have to, and not every post is like that. Obviously, there's some that take me 20 minutes as well. But the bottom line is the top people tend to put in more time into their posts, unless you just look like a Greek god or a goddess. Then you can just post a selfie and a philosophical quote, like I always laugh at the philosophical quote to go along with the selfie. But if you do that, it's a lot easier. Life is a lot easier on social media. But if you're like me and you look decent, you look like you lift, but you also love pizza and donuts, then your life, you have to succeed through educating people and through having really, really good content. And I don't think people understand how hard it is to consistently come up with good content and how much time it takes. I don't care who you are. It takes time. You got to put in, I bet you the top Instagrammers are putting in 5 hours a day on Instagram, and other people might be putting 5 hours a day on Instagram, and it's searching and scrolling around. It's not actually putting in work.
No, and that's fantastic. I think the takeaway there that I wanted my audience to know is that here you have a PhD who's one of the most highly regarded trainers in the world, working with some of the greatest athletes in the world, who spends an hour or 2 or 3 making a single post. And within that post, I mean, if somebody went to your Instagram at Brett Contreras 1, Instagram, Brett Contreras 1, and just started reading your posts one by one, like I do and have done for a couple of years now, they would learn more in 4 days than they could in 4 years of practical, applicable information of a exercise science program from a textbook. And so that's the message I want to give. If you're looking for great information, go read Mass Research Review, subscribe to Alan Aragon's or Chris Beardley's, but also read Brett Contreras' Instagram. It's absolutely amazing. You pour 99% of your energy into that. I've heard you say that you aren't displaced all over a bunch of 12 different forums, and people should read it because you do an extraordinary job. You include not just the information that you know, but you also add the scientific references. I've learned a great amount from that, and I'm always happy if I want to prove something, I'll just put a link to your Instagram post right underneath it so I can be right and win the Instagram fight. Thanks, brother, man. I know you got a lot to do. Really appreciate having you on. Look forward to seeing you again.
Hey, that's turned out really well. It was like not having a lot of time. We had to hammer these topics. It was great. I'm looking forward to sharing this with my audience.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Biggs. We'll get it up here in a day or two, and I'll send you the link.
Perfect. Have a good day.
Thanks. Take care, man.
Hey, bye.
Hey guys, Stan Efferding here, founder of the Vertical Diet. We provide a simple, sensible, and sustainable solution to help you reach your health and fitness goals. First, get started with our easy-to-follow Vertical Diet ebook, which includes a quick start guide and sample menus to customize a diet plan that fits your goals. Second, use the My Vertical Tracker app to help you monitor and maintain your progress. And third, for our busy clients who are always on the go, let us do the cooking for you. Our Vertical Diet Meal Prep Company offers free shipping for your favorite meals delivered to your door in the US and Canada. So head on over to stanefferding.com and get started today.